All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. As you are coming in, I am going to greet you in the chat. Happy 2021. Happy first quarter. Hopefully, you can tell me a little bit about that in the chat section. Definitely. I see some people who've participated in the past. Hi, Allison. I see a few people. Awesome. Awesome. I think I recognize Lisa's name. Wow. All right. So um, here at Startup FIU Food, I'm like, we still have people coming in. So I'm going to small talk before I introduce. This is me giving my Miami family the time. We want to give our Miami family the time that they need to log on. We understand that 10:30 actually means 10:40, 45. But definitely happy to get back to creating content for the community that's open to everyone. We are really excited about what's happening at Startup this year. We have huge goals to focus on cultivating opportunities for our local small businesses. And when I say small, I mean small, right? So those who are homegrown, those who are not in a position to access, the Amazons of the world when it comes to distributing their products, those who are in need of creating their own access to online supply and demand. And so, from our experience last year, we learned a lot. We learned quickly. We learned to respond to the changes, and it was, despite the fact that none of us were ready for the impacts of COVID-19, for the economic shutdown. We spent the year responding to the influx, right? Those of you who experienced quick decline in sales because everything was shutting down, those of you who were super successful in your space but never had a need to be online. That process was, let's find some speakers, let's talk about what it would be for us to create space for your business online. Let's talk about who you're going to need. And so it was a quick response. It was like, okay, this is what you're saying. Let's find some help. This year, we want to make it more formal. We want to be more proactive. I think the lesson that we as a team, we learned last year is that there is no harm in diversifying that distribution portfolio. So if you are at a farmer's market or if you are wholesaling to a particular local locations, it does not harm to consider to expand other ways of getting your product out there. And I think based on our experience from last year, I think transitioning online really is a great opportunity. And I don't see us going backwards. I don't see us in a world where online infrastructure for your business is not an option. And so these conversations, I've seen them happening at a larger scale with companies that have the capital to hire it out all out and just make it happen. But at Startup, we are advocates for small businesses that are local. And we want to be sure to have that conversation as a community. And so here comes the fireside chats. We want to talk about it first. We're building opportunities, we're building platforms, and this our moderator today is a huge part of that. For those of you who've attended a few of our summits last year, you'll know that supply chain has a huge impact on local F&B businesses, specifically small businesses. And despite the conversations not existing, our moderator has really done a great job with not just addressing the issues that small businesses experience when it comes to the supply chain process, but also meeting with some of our members and working with them directly and helping them sort this process out of what it would be to make this thing official. And so this year, we really want to focus on not just putting a product together, heading to UPS and just say, I just want to send this to this one client. We really want to support your efforts to formalize the process and make this a business model that can run alongside what you're already doing. And so, without further ado, I think, oh wait, I got 3 minutes left, but Nerva, you could give 3 minutes to our Floridians that are still coming into the session. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you our moderator, and actually she'll be joining the team to teach a few classes with us this year. Nerva is the founder of Silk Roads. She is in the tech space, but she has also made it her personal mission to support small businesses that are coming from communities of color, that are coming from communities that have that are LMI, which is considered low income communities, and focusing on cultivating infrastructure that could really help them become sustainable and scale. And so, we've experienced how her knowledge and impact transformed small businesses. And so we want to formalize that. We want to make that more accessible. And so these conversations that Nerva will be leading in the future, I want to challenge you to take advantage of who she is and ask those questions. I expect you to get into that chat room and be proactive with asking for help. This community, this village, this is the place to do it. We want to make sure that we're finding ways to give you access to as much information and support as possible. And so if you agree, please give a round of applause in the chat section to our moderator, Nerva. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. Really grateful for the opportunity. Want to just kick it off and say, yes, I'm crazy about, just equity, supply chain, technology. Those are all things that I'm very passionate about, especially for folks that look like myself. I'm Haitian first gen, so I don't take that lightly. I carry the crown, but it's my duty to make sure we compel and move that forward. And so really excited about this conversation. I met this stunning person you guys are going to get to talk to in a minute, and we geeked out for like an hour about supply chain and 3PLs and all the stuff that really we need to talk about in our business. But sometimes we just don't make the time to do it. So we're here to just hopefully educate and just provide some highlights on some of the things that are going to make you successful. And I think we can officially kick off. So again, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The future is digital, right? Fireside chat. As Dr. Anna mentioned, my name is Nerva Bosico. I'm the founder of Silk Roads, a supply chain management studio for creative entrepreneurs. I'll be handling your moderator duties today, and I'm super excited. I'm joined here with expert Brittany, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. Before we kick it off, just a few housekeeping rules, right? So just to make sure we're on par. A friendly reminder that this is being live streamed. Make sure you're comfortable, get your coffee, get some water, hydrate. And if you're on social media, be sure to share, tag us and use the tag fire questions. I'm sorry, we'll put that in the chat for you guys as well. We want to get folks, engaged in the conversation. If you look at your screen, you'll notice that we have the chat, right? And then we also are going to use a new feature today for Q&A. They do serve two different purposes. So the chat is where, it's lit, we have fun, and we connect with one another. So we're going to start it off with, I want to know where you're from. Plug your business, because this is, still we need to survive and thrive. So make sure you plug it in so we can connect with you and support what you're doing. And then also share with us the best thing that's happened to you within the last 24 hours. We're going to start off with some positive energy. And then meanwhile, during the conversation, if you have any questions, we're going to use a link called Slido. And the folks, our team has already put it in there. So make sure you submit your questions via that route. And we'll make sure to get you a response at the end. We're going to have 15 minutes at the end for a robust Q&A. So no worries, we're going to get it covered, right? And without further ado, let's talk about the future is digital with Brittany Williams. And Brittany is just a little bit about her and her bio. She's a Boston native and owner of the Better Choice Mail Pack and Ship. It's located in Boynton Beach, Florida. They focus on supporting the needs of entrepreneurs and small businesses by offering convenient warehousing and fulfillment services. The Better Choice offers multiple shipping needs, kitting services, and unique packaging options to support any business needs. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Just give the folks a wave so they can identify you. And please help me welcome her today. So to start off the conversation, I think it's key to understand who you're talking to. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're passionate about that.
Yes, good morning, everybody. You guys can just call me Bree. My first name is Briante, and you can just call me Bree for short. Well, I own the Better Choice Mail Pack and Ship in Boynton Beach, Florida. We are a shipping center. So we offer postal office, we offer UPS, FedEx, and international shipping with DHL. We sell boxes, we rent U-Hauls. We've got mailboxes, we've got virtual mailboxes. So we pretty much do it all here. And we have money services such as JN Money, Western Union, money orders, all of that. So we are a physical store where you can come and shop at, but we also support small product-based businesses by offering warehousing and fulfillment services. So I think we're here today not to talk about the front of the store, but the back end of the store. So we're here to talk about the fulfillment side and why it's important. And I am an entrepreneur myself, so I understand fully what it is like to take on all of the tasks at hand on a day-to-day basis. And I feel as though offering small product-based business support through the fulfillment center is just important. It's important to other people. If I know if it's important to me to outsource my needs, then I can only imagine how important it is for a small product-based business to outsource their needs. So
thank you so much. We can hear the passion in your voice.
Yeah.
Super. And I'll say to me too, so since we're introduction to folks that don't know, a lot of the folks, even when I first met Dr. Anna, right, the conversation that I've had, and I've had the opportunity to work in spaces, big firms, right, where we figure out like how to make sure all the planes on an airport get, to that location and make sure, flights are airworthy, on time and all that stuff. And then I was meeting small business owners that literally, everyone has a supply chain, whether they like to admit it or not, right? Whether they know it or not, it exists, right? So for us, right, we would probably say the supply chain is the business. It is what matters. It depends on where you sit at the table, but really passionate about having this conversation because it will make or break your business. So appreciate you sharing your
Absolutely.
all the different verticals that you operate in today. I think that's great that you have different tools for folks to engage in. We're saying the future is digital, right? So it's only appropriate that we start with the conversation at what does digital transformation mean to you?
So I think that this is a three-part question. I feel like first thing is first, we all know how important it is to have a website. I don't know if you guys listen to any podcasting, but on the Brilliant Idiots, which is like Charlemagne the God, who is a radio host for The Breakfast Club, and Andrew Schultz, who's a comedian, they have an ad with Squarespace where they always say your business is not official until you have a website, right? Like your business is not official until you have a website. So that's the number one thing, having a website. I think the second part is having some sort of marketing strategy where either you're going to be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, some social media platform. But then I feel like the third part of it is just having a fulfillment strategy. Right. And I think that is a part, well, that's what digital transformation is. It's having a website, having a strategy, and then having a fulfillment strategy. So I guess digital transformation may be something that wasn't necessary to think about in the past, but I think it's critical to think about today. So I think it's like a three-part question. So yeah.
Great. No, it's loaded. I know when we hear digital transformation, it seems to be like a buzzword, right? It has so many different meanings to it. And then depending on your business unit, it can take on an entirely different, like again, translation, right? So for us focusing, I would say for Silk Roads, right, we focus on truly enacting and enabling individuals to understand what it is to like embrace technology in order to do meaningful things and not just, hear these buzzwords, because it's really easy to jump on a bandwagon, right?
It is, absolutely.
We hear IoT, we hear machine learning, and it's just like, 5G, like, what does that mean? That's reality for us now. So just hearing, or blockchain, right? Like if we hear these buzzwords and we almost feel like it's fear of missing out, right?
Yep.
But before we do all that, we have to really understand like what business, like what problem are we solving? One, right? Like being very clear on the problem, and then making sure we craft the solution in a way, and then also embracing the technology so that it can provide a solution to the problem for our consumers. So thank you for sharing that with us. So the next question is, what sort of technology and tools and technologies, I should say, need to be in place for digital transformations to occur?
So in order to begin the process, I think you need to have, like I said, a website, but then you also need to have some sort of platform where your customers can purchase from. That is really just it.
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't think that it can go much deeper than that. I think you just need a platform where can your customers purchase from? And from there, it's kind of like I can walk you through the rest of the process. So starting with either a Shopify account, your own website, whatever software you're integrating for your customers to purchase with, that's where it starts at. PayPal, any of those.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about I know you mentioned fulfillment, right? I think that's something that's definitely a tool and strategy that folks need to take into consideration as the business matures and grows. So now we're in an age where we're in a need for speed, right? I mean, we've probably been here for a while, but with the pandemic, it really accelerated the digital transformation, right? We saw a lot of businesses get very savvy because of the pandemic. And there's this really infamous quote by Warren Buffett that says, "You only find out who's swimming naked when the tide goes out," right? And I think the pandemic really showed that. So we have to put certain tools in place. And so 3PL, right, which is what you do and you do it well. The fulfillment center, if you can talk a little bit about what does that mean to have a fulfillment center and when is the best time to even consider this strategy?
Okay, so we use the terms like warehousing and fulfillment and 3PL interchangeably. So 3PL is just a term that means like a third party logistics. And, I think so I'm going to talk about the past and then the present, right? In the past, the conversation was, I don't need a 3PL center. I don't need a warehousing fulfillment center. I can just do it at home. I can just do it here. I don't really need to outsource. And I think what the pandemic showed us is that like, you always need to be ready. You need to be on your P's and Q's. You need to be ready, and not just ready for a natural disaster to happen, but really be ready for your business to take off. And I think that when we are only stopping at our living room, like, hey, my family is going to help me pack these orders, or I have a friend who's going to come and pack these orders, I really think you're limiting yourself. And I mean, I can't really express how important it is, because I can't really express how important it is unless the person really wants their business to grow. And I think that just keeping that in mind, always keeping that in mind, that you're going to outsource this need at some point, it's critical, it's important. And I mean, so with warehousing and fulfillment, I know that some people just choose to warehouse and some people choose to do both. So you can still warehouse your product. It doesn't mean that you have to have product pushing out every single day, right? But you do need to have somewhere safe, somewhere where your product can be housed, not in your home. Sometimes things need to be temperature controlled. I know a lot of hair products need to be temperature controlled. A lot of time there just needs to be better quality, like management of your product. So it's not just all about the shipping side. Sometimes you just need a place to store it. And I think it's important to know that you can warehouse and fulfillment, but you can also do both together, but you can also very much so just warehouse alone.
Yeah. So an essential for anyone that just had, we had some folks roll in just to sort of reset the room. We're talking about 3PL, digital transformation. What does that mean? And so 3PL, or like you said, warehousing and fulfillment, as folks many know, is how folks know it today, is the act of outsourcing your warehousing, your distribution, and your fulfillment services, right? So many different components to that, because warehouse life can be crazy. So we have to, be cognizant of like, okay, it is, and also there's two tracks, right? When you first start your business, you can't just, probably wouldn't advise that you just jump out there and do this, right? But you can start having a conversation. I would advise that you need the land and having a conversation with folks as yourself to say, hey, this is what I'm building. Like, when can my, when I'm mature, at what stage can I start coming to you to, you take the stuff, right? And I don't have to have it
right
in my living room. And there's a perfect example of this with Carol's daughter, right? There's one point where her husband was like, he was excited when they outsource the stuff. He's like, because it's not in the house anymore, right? And so, like you said, to your point, we urge folks like, after 6 months and you're doing well, and you've put some digital things in place and it's taking off, that you would have to, a consideration to outsource, and not necessarily like have a, that the mentality of like, let me, keep every dollar, because it's actually going to cost you something in the long run, right? So how can we do this strategically and actually grow? I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to touch on what you just said, because I think that the idea of a fulfillment center is that, I have to be pushing X number of products every single month. I have to be doing a certain number. And that's not necessarily the truth. At the Better Choice, what I offer, so I own the Better Choice meal package ship. I refer to the Better Choice as the Better Choice, like this is the fulfillment center itself. So what I do is I have those small packages for people who are just starting up, because it's not, see, some people still have their job, right? 9 to 5. Some people still have their job and their parents, your mom, your dad, and there's just not enough time in the day to do all of these roles. And I think that one thing that I really pride myself on is making sure that I include everybody in the conversation. The smallest of the smallest business owner, the person who's doing 2 sales a month, but really just doesn't have time to do that. You just don't have the time. Whether the person who's doing 500 sales a month. And I just really want to make sure that I'm including every single person and offering different packages for your needs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think you're in a unique position, right? Because most 3PLs, I'm sure you have to have certain MOQs. And for folks that don't know what that is, that's minimum order quantity, right? So you have to be doing a certain amount of volumes, like 300, 500, right? Yep. But you're saying, hey, I'm going to super serve this niche community, right? The folks that are hustling, right? We're literally, we're putting on the accounting hat, we're CEO, COO, CMO, CTO. We're doing all of these roles, and then we're still, having to operate in full home and have to be a full functioning human being. It's difficult. So I think that's kudos to you and what you built, because you're now saying, hey, I'm going to super serve you even when you just start off. So definitely tap in and talk to you to figure out, okay, how do you, again, it's so much easier when you have that team, right? If you really think about it, you're allowing folks to get to market quicker, because they don't have to worry about that extra, like, picking, packing, shipping. And I think the segue to that is, us saying, when we've kind of talked about already, but, why do people need, 3PL, right? If I'm into business, like, why do I need you, right? So why should I look to incorporate these into my processes now more than ever? And I know we kind of spoke on it, but if there's any other points that you want to mention there, I would love for your input.
Be ready. I think that's all that it is. I really think it's just being ready. And I think when you can outsource a need, you can focus on other things. Maybe you can focus on pushing more sales, your marketing. Maybe you can focus on the accounting. Maybe you can consider developing another product. I think that, it's more than just, oh, I need a fulfillment center because of this. But no, maybe it's going to give you the leverage to be able to do other things within your business, not just about the shipping side, not just about the picking and packing side. Because yes, we have that all down pack, but it really is to serve you and serve your needs. And it's more than just one need. So
supply chain, which was once invisible, right? A lot of folks didn't know about us and all that good stuff. And it's very much now one of those words that people understand and want to get educated on. I think so for us, like we've talked about why it's important, what tools we need to have in place. Like, let's literally break it down for folks, right? So let's say I'm a business and I'm new and I'm getting started, right? And I'm considering this, like, right? And I want to say I'm going to work with you, and I have a whole bunch of stuff. You have a warehouse, like, how does that work? Do I just mail you a bunch of stuff and then we get started? Like, what is the process, your onboarding process look like? And as far as like working with the 3PL, what can they expect?
So our onboarding process is really easy. And if you want, I want you guys to follow me on Instagram. It's the Better Choice Meal Pack and Ship on Instagram. And I have a really nice roadmap where I talk about the onboarding process in 5 very simple, easy steps. So it's very simple. It's as far as you would contact your manufacturer, and your manufacturer would basically ship your items to me physically. That's the first thing. When your items arrive, we inspect them for quality control. We do all the receiving, making sure they look good, making sure they got here in one piece in transit, because we all know, like, it's almost as if like you want to ask the drivers, like, are you beating up the boxes on the way over here? So I inspect, we like literally go through the whole process. We have a sheet where we make sure we count everything, make sure all the product that your manufacturer said was supposed to arrive actually arrives. We count the number of boxes. We do all the receiving and intake. And after we do the receiving and intake, we assign SKU numbers. We count your inventory. We plug all the numbers into the computer, make sure that you know what was arrived. It's always going to be transparent. You're always going to know what we are doing. We're always going to be able to keep you in the loop. We count your inventory, and then we assign your SKU numbers, and then we start the process of placing it up on the shelf or in bins so that they can be easily picked and packed when your orders come in. And then as your orders come in, we ship them out, and then the final step is your customer receives the product. But it's a very simple process, and I feel like a lot of fulfillment centers make it really hard to get in contact with somebody. You'll call and you'll ask them a question and like, oh, we'll have a rep call you back. And I feel like it should just be way more transparent than that. It doesn't really have to be difficult. I want to make sure that I'm transparent with you and that the onboarding process is clear. Once you come to me and ask me, hey, Bree, I want to start the process of using your fulfillment center, I'm going to send you a link, and you are going to fill out that link to the best of your knowledge. And I call you up on the phone, or we talk over Zoom, and then I literally see what it is that you need. And then we talk numbers and we go from there. But very simple, very easy, very transparent. I'll enjoy talking to people, and I want people to ask me as many questions that they can possibly have. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that this industry is very, very masculine. And I also don't think that it includes a lot of people of color. And I get really excited, and it gives me really like goosebumps when I see so many people, so many minorities like myself, women just wanting to be in this physical space, wanting to have a 3PL solution, wanting to have a fulfillment center, needing this. So I get excited that, you guys are reaching out to me, asking me for this, because it means that we are doing something right. So.
That's amazing. And we just dropped the link too, if you are interested in connecting with her. Please make sure to fill that out, and make sure you're submitting your questions via Slido. We also have that in the chat. I think the perfect segue to that, right, is to talk about, you basically talk your 5-step process, your onboarding process, right? So we're not just sending you stuff, we're having a conversation, we're figuring it out. So there's some ease there. So assuming, 3PL, right, warehousing can be very crazy and intense. I'm assuming tracking hundreds of items is complicated, right? So how do you do that, and making sure that, I can be rest assured as a business owner that, my products are safe, and then someone is mailing them out, and then also still having that front side, right, front facing with the consumer, like you just mentioned, that they do get tracking. So how can they feel, just some safety and guarantee there from on your end?
So with us, we do every order that comes before 4 p.m. is a cutoff time. So 4 p.m. is the cutoff time. All orders before that are always going to be shipped out. We never wait. We never hold on to your orders ever. Anytime a customer places an order, 4 p.m. is the cutoff time, and it will be shipped out. So I say that to say, you don't have to worry about your orders not going out. They're always going to go out. But once they leave our door, it is true, I can't control if it's damaged in the process of transit. So those things do happen. There's insurance. Carriers do offer insurance, but I can't control what happens after it leaves the warehouse. Now, this is the next thing too, is that I enjoy telling people like, hey, this packaging is not suitable for transit. It will get crushed. It's not durable. It's not reliable. And that's also a part of the conversation, that the onboarding process. If you're shipping candles and you're coming to me and you're just saying, oh, I just want to ship this candle, I'm going to say, oh, no. We need to have some buffer. We need to have better packaging. We need to make sure that we need to do all of our efforts to make sure that your product gets there on time, in one piece and on time. But timing wise, I can't really control either, because, things do arrive late, things do happen. But I do want to make sure that the product does get to your customer in one piece. So that is something that I do focus on, and I will say, because it's important to me. I don't want anything that leaves my warehouse for anyone to say, oh, this wasn't packaged well, and that's why it was like that in transit. Like, no, we are going to make sure that we give you all the advice necessary to make sure your products are safe during transit. And while in the warehouse, we do have cameras, it is safe. There's not any extra people coming and going out of your warehouse, out of the warehouse. No one's just taking your products and just pocketing them for yourselves. That's a no. That's not a thing. It doesn't happen here. So everything is safe. Everything is your values. Your valuables are good.
And so what I hear too in that in your conversation is that the things that are controllable, right? You guys do it well, and then there's certain things, you know, carrier issues with the pandemic, you know, USPS, FedEx, UPS, you know, you do your best and you ship it out, and then they will, you know, have some. If there's any delay, there still sounds like you guys have some. You guys handle it from cradle to the grave, since that you still walk with the customer at the very end. And that the way that, and most folks, and we can speak to this a little bit, is when you do set up with the 3PL, there's integrations that happen, right? So there's not necessarily extra technology you have to put in place. You literally, if you have a Shopify, it connects directly to your Shopify, right? So the customer is completely oblivious to the fact that there is a 3PL relationship in place. And they just order normally, right? They order normally, and then they place your order, and then you're just the person in the background making sure it all goes out. You know, brands that do this today, Glossier is a very perfect example of it. Touch sanitizer, right? They do a good job with that too. And so there's a lot of players that utilize 3PL, and so we want to, you know, start normalizing the conversation around that digital transformation and solution in place. Now I know the question probably everyone has, because, you know, cash is king in business. So what is the cost structure, right? Like what are the things that go into, from a cost perspective, that goes into working with a 3PL? Like what do I have to keep in mind, right? Like picking, packing, like what does that look like?
Okay, so we have different fees and different fee structures. So we have a warehousing fee. This fee is simply just to warehouse your product, just to hold your product on a month. And all billing comes out on a monthly basis at the beginning of the month. So all billing is conducted once a month. You're not going to be getting slapped with bills every, you know, and when you do get your invoice, it'll be very clear, it'll be very concise. There's not going to be any confusion about like, you know, this doesn't make any sense to me. It'll be very clear. Like I said, transparency. I don't like to be confusing. I like to be as clear as possible. But yes, we do have a warehousing fee. We have a shelving fee, or we have like a floor fee. So depending on your product, maybe it needs to go higher up. Maybe, you know, it can go down on the ground. We offer that. We have a receiving fee from your manufacturer. So anything that comes from your manufacturer, like I said earlier, we make sure it's quality. We count it, make sure it looks good. So that's a receiving fee. Then we have an order fee. And so within the order fee, how the order fee is compiled, right? How it's created is there's a kitting base fee. So say you need, I wish I could have, cool. I should have grabbed an example. But for an example of someone that we do fulfillment for is the braid releaser. It's a unique tool that assists women in taking out their braids. It's similar to a rat tail comb, but not really. It's actually way better. And so she has a box, and that box has a 3-part construction. So that would be the kitting base fee. That's I'm putting together your boxes. I'm placing the item into the box, making sure it looks good. It's presented well. There's a box assembly fee. How do I say this? These are not like $5 for this. It's like, it's all gonna make sense if you reach out to me, and I'll give you the numbers. But there's like a thank you card insert. There's an additional item fee. So say a customer bought 3 different items from you. So you would get a kitting base fee and then each item fee thereafter. There's a shipping fee. If you allow your customers to do returns, there's a return fee. And that's pretty much it. But I don't want to scare anybody away and say, oh, she's high. There's a lot of fees that go involved in this. It's really, it's not as bad as it sounds. Trust me.
Yeah, no. And
so there are.
Yeah, no, go ahead, finish, please.
Yeah, no, these are all fees, but it's don't worry.
Yeah, so these are all the fees that you listed. So what goes into calculating a cost structure when you work with a 3PL, those are standard things, right? So you still have to, I think we have to put it, the way we rationalize it is like, these are things you would have been doing, right? Versus that now you're outsourcing it. And so there's usually there's 5 components, like mentioned, you know, your pick, your pack, You have the box, right? Are you going to have any inserts, right? So that's why when we work with folks, we probably say, hey, we probably don't want to do a custom approach because it's going to drive up the cost, because you do have to factor in labor. Then you have your goods in, right? Like how much is it going to cost? Like all the things you just mentioned. So these are standard things that go into it, but I think it's for us as business owners, clear is kind, and we have to be very clear about what it is that, goes into outsourcing something like this, and having digital transformation in your business is vital and very doable. I think the next thing to talk about, and one thing you mentioned is like shipping directly from the OEM, and that's original equipment manufacturer. So you're shipping it from your manufacturer to your facility, right? And folks can work with you. So what are some best practices to working with 3PLs, and what should one look at when looking just a fulfillment center, like, right? So, and I'll give some pointers at the end too, but.
All right. So the first part, like I said, transparency. I hate for someone to not be clear on what they're expecting of you. Make sure that the fulfillment center is transparent, making sure that if your product needs a certain temperature controlled, making sure that they're actually able to have a temperature controlled warehouse, because I do think that there's warehouses that aren't temperature controlled. And I think that's important for anybody who is like shipping cakes or food items. So yeah, I mean, those are the two things that I think are the most important to me. What else do you have, Nerva?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things when I would say when you're negotiating with the 3PL, which we love negotiating over here. It's very important. You probably say no, though, but it's super important to negotiate. And so some of the tips or best practices that I would say is when you start the conversation, you want to request terms and conditions up front, right?
Oh, yeah.
Terms and conditions. So everybody goes into, especially supply chain, like, a lot of my clients like, oh, I want the lowest cost. Okay, well, cost is important, right? But what kind of quality are we putting into place? Like, how are we going to serve our customers? And so making sure that their, user experience is so good that they're going to go back and give you that social currency and want to come back more. That's what we're really working on in the secondary sales funnel. So some of the things too, so like we get the cost, like working with you, we would get the, price sheet, but then we would also want to see what the terms and conditions are. And so even in the pandemic, something that was really crucial in terms and conditions was the force majeure clause, right? And that clause pretty much says like, hey, in the event that something happens, right? It's a common clause in contracts that is essentially frees both parties from liabilities in the event of something like COVID, right? And that happened last year. So if you're not negotiating terms like that upfront ahead of just looking at cost, it can put you in a bad position. So make sure you are in the practice of not only looking at cost, but looking at all the fine lines. Like, right, you see the car commercials, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Tesla, right? And I'll give my perfect example. It came out, and I was like, oh, it's only 20,000, okay. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah. Okay. So, just making sure you do your due diligence and having those certain protections in place, and always looking for an exit strategy, because, you got to evaluate it when everything goes well. And then you also have to evaluate for your business. What if we want to make a shift? What does that look like? So that's something I always advise too. I think the next thing we should talk about, and being very mindful on time, we might start wrapping it up a little bit, but where are you currently? So you're in Boynton, or is your only facility right now in Boynton Beach?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
We're hoping that we can expand and get a grander warehouse and fulfillment center. But at the moment, yes, we're still located in Boynton Beach. We're in those conversations to try to make, some arrangements to get into a bigger space, a much bigger space.
Nice. And why do you think businesses do not know, or younger companies don't know about solutions such as yourself? Can you talk about some of that? And I know Anna mentioned the Amazon effect, right? What plays a factor into that?
Well, Amazon affects, okay, so customers, we are in a world, and my mom always tells me that I just want stuff instantaneously. And it's like, I do, and everybody else does too. And Amazon is giving it to us instantaneously. So I feel like it's really important to make sure that you are understanding that a customer wants their stuff quickly. They don't want to wait 24 hours. They don't want to wait a week. Nobody wants to wait a week. They don't want to hear that, oh, I had to drop it off. You filled the order on a Monday, but you didn't drop it off until Friday, right? Like, this is important to make sure that you understand that you could lose a customer if you continue to do things in that manner, right? And I think a lot of people forget that customer service is important, but they also really just genuinely don't know that fulfillment centers do exist. So a lot of people just think that they can do it on their own. I also think that smaller businesses get cut off from these larger fulfillment centers where they say, oh, you're not meeting a certain number, so therefore we can't work with you. A lot of people just get intimidated. I think that the warehousing and fulfillment 3PL world is very masculine, and it's very masculine, and it could intimidate anybody. It could make someone feel like, oh, they probably don't even want to work with me, but they probably just have hundreds and hundreds of other clients that they're working with. It's not personal against you. So I think what's really unique about me is that, one, we take our time. There's quality, right? There's customer service. You're always going to be able to reach someone. You're always going to be able to have transparency when it comes to billing. You're going to have a clear contract. So these are all things that I feel like are important, especially for a small business.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to the point that you would help folks get to market quicker,
Yeah.
because that can be something your supply chain can hinder that growth if you're not able to fulfill, within a certain particular time frame, because we do have the Amazon effect in place. When it comes to small businesses, right, small and medium-sized businesses, what sort of technologies do you think are involved, or that they can use, that you're currently even using with your clients today, right? Just to do things better, especially with COVID, propelling, right, or accelerating the digital transformation.
Of course, social media, but figuring out what people want, listen to what your customers have to say. Once your customer gets an order, I think it's important to have some type of follow-up. And so with us, every time an order is filled, your customer gets a unique tracking number, a landing page sent straight to their email. And I think that's really, really nice. Like, could you imagine placing an order at 12 p.m. and then before 4, they get their tracking number sent to them? That makes me want to order from you, because I'm like, yeah, it's going to come quick. It's going to make you feel good. And I think that I don't think a lot of people think about that or consider it, or they think that it can't really be done, or they feel like, oh, they can wait for their product. Like no, they can't wait. So
yeah, you have to still operate in excellence, and supply chain is a big, we mentioned this earlier, we're in the business of connection, right? And so you can come up with these beautiful, crazy ideas and, make it a reality. But then at the end of the day, like, you still have to ship it, and I still have to be able to get it in order for me to come. And so I don't think there's any single business unit that does not need connection, whether it be, your customers, your suppliers, your employees, right? We all need to really keep those in place. Some of the things that I would suggest and add on to your conversation, right? So 5G is a technology that's here to stay. We've seen, if you think about within the food and beverage industry, contactless, interactions. Right now, now you pick up things and don't have to worry about interacting with folks. Like, what does that look like? And so we do have this need for speed. Blockchain is something that's very, come on up and coming. That is a technology. I know that there's a lot of things around that folks can consider if they're in the position to cybersecurity.
Yep.
Because there's a lot more people online. So how do you make sure that you're protecting people's data? So making sure that you have those things in place to make sure your business can really survive and thrive. And again, I know we're getting close on time. I don't know if we can start our Q&A section and just see if anyone has any questions so far via Slido, and we can pull that up and interact with people. So during this time frame. Do we have any questions?
Well, while the team is pulling up the questions, I have a few questions. Just, so, and some statements. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate the time that you're allocating to this conversation. Traditionally, when we have workshops, we have panel conversations, the topics tend to be traditional. It's access to capital, it's marketing, and then, marketing is like an ocean of topics. It's just, there's not a lot of conversation around the operation, right? And so when it comes to the categories of small businesses that we focus on, I've gotten 2020, I got into a lot of fights. So one of the fights I got into had to do with the concept of supply chain for small businesses. There's this preconceived notion that creating a process for your operations that is capable and for scale is the big boys lane. Like only a large company can have this conversation. This is not a conversation that is doable for small businesses. And, luckily I was able to meet the owner of Silk Roads, Nerva, who literally does this, right? And so for everyone who's here with us, you would reach out to someone like Nerva to help you construct that process, to help you assess where you stand as a company and to see how you can make that happen, right? And where a company like Breeze would fit in. And so my question to you, Bree, is when what stage does the business traditionally need to be in? There is I am proof of concept, I have this product, I've been selling and it's been doing well. But what stage, and I guess the question is for both of you to answer, Nerva, what stage does a company have to be in to say, okay, hey, this is working out. I have more orders than I could fill. What does that look like in the background for the businesses that are selling their products traditionally right now? And how could structuring something like a fulfillment center prepare them for scale?
I can take that first. So a lot of the folks that I work with today, I want to go through. So you have this idea, right? We service two tracks, right? We have folks that come on board and they have this, beautiful, just crazy idea, right? CEO mind, you're dreaming and you're just thinking of things, and then COO, you have to be very practical. So we have folks that come to us with these ideas, and we figure out, okay, how do we make it? Right? Do we want to make it? Do we want to buy it? Like, what does that look like? And then we have folks that are further along in the journey that already, have product, past proof of concept, and we just want to figure out, okay, how do we make this, buy from the right people at the right time, at the right quality, without compromising service to the customer. So those are the two tracks that we services today. And honestly, I would say 70 to 80% of the folks that we service and go into 3PL are usually in the proof of concept. You don't have to be that much further along to actually have a 3PL, right? We worked with someone and within 2 months, they started their business. They were doing so well within the 300 to 500 units a month, even as low as 150 to 200 that, folks are out there that will have the conversation with you to start a 3PL. So you can be proof of concept stage and start these conversations. And that's what we figure out, right? We sit down and we figure out what is it that you're making? And then how do you do that better? And who are the partners that we need to be, to be with in order to make sure your business can scale and become, as big as it needs to be, right? It is very doable. It's not only there's unicorns, but there's ways to facilitate that. And I'll let Bree explain a little bit more so on her side.
I think I'm like more so phase two. I think you probably, I never, with just how you handle the small businesses, I think you would know when it's time for them to make that transition. I think I'm more of like a phase two. I think the customer just knows. I think the client knows, hey, I know I need to outsource this because it's just too much at this point. And I feel like that's kind of where I come. I think people come to a fulfillment center in all different phases as well. So
yeah,
it just kind of depends.
Yeah, so it's definitely more so the trajectory is someone would find someone like myself, right? And so just some background, what we used to do with big corporations have worked with, very big aviation, right? So we were managing 3 million parts, right? There's a lot of parts that go on an airplane. And so how do we make sure all the parts get, like I said earlier, to the customer, right? So that way, when we get on our flight, we don't know anything is going on under the plane, right? But there's so much going on. And so making sure we facilitate that. And so have now taken that in the realm of, okay, let's help small and medium-sized businesses. So we would start that conversation and literally coming in saying, if I see certain numbers and I'm like, a lot of people don't know that they can start so early on. They think that they have to, do 1,000 or 2,500. And there's different players out there like yourself, right, Bree, who are taking smaller scale, and it helps you get to market quicker. That's really what it comes down, right? Like we go from 30, so we plan out the big vision, right? 36 months from now and say, okay, 36 months from now, if the New York Times wrote a piece about our company, what does our AR look like, right? And then we reverse engineer it, right? So then we can start putting key things like a 3PL in place so that you don't have to worry about doing fulfillment out of your living room, and really it's, costing you something. So you can be in proof of concept and still succeed. And then there's another side of the coin too. But yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Yes.
Do we have, so we have a question. Does the Better Choice utilize trucking either for local or long distance fulfillment, or is it primarily air, USPS, UPS, etc.?
At the moment, we don't offer the trucking. We don't offer it right now. And that is something that I would like to explore, but I really haven't had anybody who has a need for that. Anonymous, if you want to look at the chat and then kind of go fill out the form, we can probably talk about that further, but I just haven't had no one has had a need for it. So if that's something that you're interested in, we can definitely talk about that. And the form is in the chat now, and I'll post it again right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? This is the time.
Yes, 3 minutes. This is like your last shot before the mic is dropped.
And I also just want to make sure that I say, like, the better your business does is not just about the better I do, but I genuinely care about the quality of your work. And I can't really say that enough. I think it's more than just sticking something in an envelope and taking your money. I think that it's just about making sure your product is quality. I care about your business. I care about my business. So anything that I touch, I make sure that it would be my stamp of approval on it, saying it's quality.
Definitely. And for those of you that, I know in the chat, I'm not going to call you out, but for those of you that are in here and you have products that you deliver yourself, you have products that you have gone through that process of packaging and shipping yourself. And this, in my opinion, probably was the COVID response. Like, I'm getting orders. I need to get this out. I need to create a website. And it was, a reaction to what was happening. But I will encourage everyone in this chat, in this conversation, to consider the possibility, right? Usually when we're spoken to about being a small business, the language is always sustainability. What do I need to do to stay afloat? What do I need to do to grow a little bit? We don't have necessarily the conversation for real scale and growth. And we've seen last year, some of our businesses grow in ways they didn't anticipate when they transitioned online, right? They experienced oh man, I didn't even know that this version of a demand could exist for me. Right. And so this is circulating the dollar. This is being in a position for all of you small businesses to get together and cultivate ways to build out your clientele. And so what I'd love to hear from all of you is, what are some of the other topics that you want to talk about? We touched on some technology. We touched on the opportunity for you to work with Bree. And we're going to be working with Bree as well. I want Bree in Miami-Dade County. I'm going to be pushing for that personally. That would be very nice if she could have multiple traffic. But let's ask the question. And if you're not able to ask the question now, ask the question to us. I want to know, what are the other topics? What are the other challenges that you're facing when it comes to being the producer of your product, the operations person of the product? You may feel like you're not in a position to build the team, but I'm going to disagree with you. This is not something you have to pull the trigger on right now, but I think this should be a part of your financial forecast. How much is it going to cost for me to actually make this business functional to the place where it's not 9 to 9, right? And some of you business owners on here, you work 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown. What is it going to take to scale this to the place where I can not be the business, but have a business? And so definitely want to thank everyone for coming. I'm ending this mom lecture. Definitely want to thank Bree and Nerva for joining us. And I really look forward to having more of these conversations with you guys. I would really love to hear about the other topics you want to talk about so we can source some of these conversations as well. Nerva, you had something to say?
Yeah, so no, Amelia just put in the chat for it's wholesaling your product, getting into wholesales and public shipping on Etsy and other platforms, and just more scaling. So want to just touch on that really quick. So we, I would say for me too, and I probably agree, we do that, right? So we work with folks to get into, let's say you want to get into Target, you want to get into Whole Foods, get into Publix. Those are the conversations that I'm saying that we actually focus on, because that is part of growing your business and becoming, scaling it to the next level. So we would have that conversation, and that's part of doing. It doesn't feel comfortable, and that's what I'm saying. Like, not just like zoning in on that small part. Like, I want to be big. No, what does it mean to be big, right? We have to zoom out and then zoom back in. So that's why we say, let's look at 36 months. How are you making that product? And then we would then have those conversations. And after we get very clear on making sure our house is, appropriate, then we can go out and approach a Whole Foods, approach a Publix, right? One of my clients actually just got into Target. We did a lot of work before she got into Target, right? And now she's in Target. She has a 3PL. Those are the conversations that, Bree and I, that's what we're here for, to help you facilitate those conversations and make sure you're doing it better, less stuff off your plate at, a reasonable cost, right? In terms and conditions, and making sure you get to that $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever you have in mind, right? It's very doable.
Right. And I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Anna, for including me in this today. I am eternally grateful for you. Thank you. And Nerva, thank you as well for moderating this and just opening up doors for me, allowing me a chance to learn. So thank you guys so much.
I appreciate everyone who came.
And everybody who's here supporting.
Middle of the week. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the future. We are working on more summits, and we're going to launch some new programs that will support you. If you agree with me, let's thank our speakers in the chat. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate this conversation. And we look forward to having more of it. Thank you all. All right, guys. What's the rest of your day?
All right. Take care, you all. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.